So we've just seen what happens in the country phase. Now let's have a look at the third phase, the evolution phase. The evolution phase is all about making your disease stronger and adapting it to what's on the world board at the time. This is your evolution slide, and it displays the traits that your disease currently has. Traits are these coloured bars, and each trait enables your disease to behave in a slightly different way. You start the game with some core traits on your slide. So here we've got 2 infectivity and 1 lethality. And you also have 5 trait cards in your hand. And as the game progresses, you can choose to evolve trait cards and place them on your evolution slide to get additional traits. If we have a quick look at these trait cards, you'll see they all have trait bars on them. Some of them have more than 1 trait on a given card. They also all have a DNA cost in the top left corner of the card. Now, if you want to evolve a trait card onto your evolution slide, first of all, you need to look at your evolution spaces. Your slide has 5 evolution spaces, and if a space is empty, you can choose to place a trait card on it. So let's say we want to evolve sore throat in order to give us some extra infectivity. We have 5 empty evolution spaces, so that's okay. We also need to consider the DNA cost of the card. We have to be able to pay 2 DNA points to evolve it. So we'll look at blue's DNA marker, and they have 2 DNA points, so that's okay. So we will place the trait card on one of the evolution spaces and then pay the cost of 2 by moving our DNA points marker back to 0. You can only evolve 1 trait card per turn, and you can only evolve a card if you have enough DNA points to afford it. One very important thing to note is that at the end of the game, all of the DNA points on your evolution slide get added back onto your final DNA score. So you never actually lose DNA points by evolving, you're just taking them from your score tracker onto your slide. So there are a number of different traits, and we'll explain what they do later on, but we also need to point out the abilities that are printed on some of your evolution spaces. Abilities let you do a certain thing once per turn if you choose to, as long as the ability space is visible. So we've already spoken about bonus DNA and what that does, and we'll talk more about Outbreak later. But if I had evolved sore throat over the bonus DNA space, then the bonus DNA ability could no longer be used. So it's normally worth covering up an empty evolution space before you cover up an ability. It's also worth pointing out that if you want to, you can choose to devolve and remove a trait card that you've previously evolved off your evolution slide. However, if you do that, the card you removed is discarded and you don't get any DNA points back. So think carefully before you decide to devolve. Something I mentioned in the country phase as well is if you've run out of your trait cards or you don't like your hand of trait cards, then the only way to get new trait cards is when you discard a country card. Remember, if you discard a country card, you must also discard your hand of trait cards and take 5 new ones from the deck. So that explains the evolution phase, but now let's just quickly look ahead a little bit to see how the evolution phase might work later in the game. Yellow is currently on 5 DNA points and is deciding whether to evolve cold resistance, which costs 4 DNA, which it can afford, or whether it should not evolve anything this turn and save up to get tumours instead, which costs 13 DNA. For the sake of this playthrough, we're going to evolve cold resistance. And we'll place that on the evolution space and move the counter back 4. And that's the end of the evolution phase.